Welcome to Citizen Science at your academic library, ideas and inspirations. We hope you leave today excited about the possibilities of bringing citizen science to your academic library. And we're going to be hearing from some great panelists today about examples for how this work is already happening in the field. The webinar today is coming in collaboration with SciStarter, a global database for citizen science. If you have not checked out SciStarter, please do so. And the LIBER Citizen Science Working Group. So thank you both hosts for coming together to bring us this amazing webinar today. Next slide, please. Okay, we're good. We're also in partnership with these three libraries and universities, the University of Bordeaux, the Q Leuven libraries, and the UR Fisk in Bordeaux. Next slide, please. My name is Tara Cox. I am the Assistant Director of Programs at a national organization called the National Collaborative Project. National, too. I realize when we say national now, could mean anywhere. And I'm also the director of the National Citizen and Community Science Library Network, which is a growing network of libraries in the US and internationally of libraries that are hoping to become community hubs for citizen science, making citizen science more accessible to their communities by providing kits, hosting events, being the one-stop shop for knowledge building and access to citizen science across their communities. This is Citizen Science Month. April is Citizen Science Month, so we're celebrating citizen science all month long, and you can check out citizensciencemonth.org for more information. I'm going to introduce our speakers today. Let me just pull up their biographies. Our first speaker today is KT Vaughn. KT's first love was botany, but after realizing that she was good at library research, but not at all at either bench or field work, she went into science libraryship as her career. 2 decades later, she served as the library specialist for a wide range of STEM fields. She is currently the university librarian at the Washington and Lee University, which is a small liberal arts college in Virginia in the USA. And this semester, she is teaching a course on crowdsourcing and will be presenting on how citizen science is an important module for that course. KT is a regular contributor to citizen science projects, especially ones that focus on botany and health. Welcome, KT. We also have Dominic Tate from the University of Edinburgh. Dominic is the head of library research support at Edinburgh University Library and a member of the LIBER's Citizen Science Working Group. Together with his team, Dominic provides help and support for staff and students in all matters related to scholarly communication and research publication, including open access, biometrics, and copyright, research data management, and management of the university's research information systems. Dominic was previously the university's scholarly communications manager and has held similar roles at the University of London and at the University of Nottingham. Welcome, Dominic. And lastly, we have Raphael. Looking for your bio here, Raphael. Oops, somehow I got muted.
Maybe I forgot to give my biography.
That's okay. Well, you introduce yourself, Raphael, no problem.
Okay, I'm Raphael Batz, sorry. I'm the co-head of URFIST of Bordeaux at the University of Bordeaux. And so suddenly I don't know where I am.
Raphael brought us all together today. She's been doing all of the legwork for this webinar. So thank you, Raphael, for making this happen today.
Thank you.
Okay, well, you can introduce yourself more. Raphael will be presenting as well, so we'll learn more about her work in a bit. Okay, so let's pass it to KT to tell us about her work regarding citizen science at her library, University Library. KT, you have the stage, and feel free to put questions in the chat throughout. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Tara. I am excited to talk with everybody today about the course that I'm teaching at Washington and Lee University. This course is called DCI 295C, Crowdsourcing on the Internet, and it's focused on crowdsourcing as a methodology in science, humanities, business, and life in general. So I want to set the stage with a quick introduction to Washington and Lee and to the university libraries. We call ourselves W&L. And we are a small liberal arts university set in the mountains of Virginia. The university has a little bit under 2,000 undergraduates, a little bit under 200 graduate law students. So we're not large. We do have 2 undergraduate colleges. One of them focuses on the arts, the humanities, social sciences, and the natural sciences. And the other one is a school that focuses on commerce, economics, business, and politics. The university library primarily supports the undergraduate research and teaching program of those 2 colleges. It is a highly regarded center on campus by both our students and our faculty. We have 22 total people in the library, 12 faculty librarians, and 10 professional staff. And we support robust circulating and special collections and a very large and very popular physical facility. Next slide, please. One of the things that is somewhat unique about Washington and Lee University Library among schools of our size is that we support a minor degree program primarily using library faculty members. So that is an extra degree that students can get in addition to their main course of study. This program is called Digital Culture and Information, or DCI. It was started somewhere between 5 and 8 years ago, and it came out of a grant fund from the Mellon Foundation that was intended to explore ways that small liberal arts colleges could support research and teaching in the digital humanities. But in the end, DCI ended up with a much broader mandate than just the digital humanities. So on here we have some of the language that we use to describe this minor degree program. Its purpose is to allow students to deeply explore knowledge and society in the context of the digital age. And my favorite phrase on here is that a DCI minor provides the foundation for life as an informed citizen in a digital society. In essence, this is a program that teaches advanced information literacy skills to students on our campus. One of the great advantages of having a minor degree program is that our faculty librarians have near unlimited freedom to develop new courses within their interests, especially within this 295 sequence, which is special topics. These topics can vary widely. In the winter term of this year, we had 2 of these. One was on geospatial analysis, and the other one was called digital bookish culture. They were both extremely cool, and they both focused on information literacy in the broad sense. That is, data literacy, media literacy, science literacies, all the different literacies. And because of that, it really makes sense for this program to be housed in the library. Next slide, please. So it's a wonderful thing to be given free rein to teach whatever you want. It's also terrifying to try to make that decision of what to teach. So as I was working on preparing to teach a new course, I kept coming back to how much I personally value feeling connected to research in the sciences and humanities through participation in citizen science and humanities programs. In fact, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, I was a participant in the SETI at Home program, which connected personal computers to a large mainframe in order to leverage underutilized processing cycles during off hours. And that was an early crowdsourced citizen science program. So I decided that teaching crowdsourcing as an aspect of digital culture would be fun as a topic for me and hopefully for the students. It lets me talk about principles of information literacy, including things like data has value and the constructed nature of authority. But it also allows me to share my love of citizen science with these students. And thus, this course was developed. So my purpose in teaching this course on crowdsourcing is to present students in the class with a broad survey of areas in which this method is used. And that's so that they can help explore the cultural, social, ethical, and practical issues of managing information across its life cycle using this kind of mass data collection and analysis technique. A side benefit, especially this week, is to expose students to the lifelong learning opportunities that participatory research gives them, especially in disciplines for which they may feel passion or interest, but don't want to commit to as a career. This, after all, defines a lot of what I do as a citizen scientist who's also a working librarian. So on this slide, I have copied part of the official description for the course. And the most important piece here, I think, is the quote, "Crowdsourcing has become a major part of academic and corporate research across disciplines in the sciences and humanities. Citizen science and citizen archivist online programs allow non-experts opportunities to participate in research in new and surprising ways." Next slide, please. So the spring term at Washington and Lee, which just started on Monday, is a very intense 4-week period. Students take 1 3 or 4 credit course at a time. So DCI 295C meets 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday, for just over 2 hours a day. Our first day of class was on Monday, April the 24th. Our final day will be May 18th, just a few weeks from today. Our courses at Washington and Lee tend to be small. This allows for a lot of active learning and for discussion and for play within the course. We have 16 students, most of whom are in their 2nd or their 3rd year of the 4-year undergraduate sequence. And most of these students are also in business administration or accounting and finance majors. Those are 2 of our largest majors on campus. On the first day of class, we held a discussion to share our motivations for participating in this class and our previous experiences with different crowdsourcing and crowdfunding platforms. For the most part, students were coming into this course interested in crowdsourcing, but not experienced in either participating as a crowdsourced worker or as a manager, and very few of them had any experience with citizen science. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, crowdsourcing applications in citizen science is one of the main modules of this course. So, in recognition of Citizen Science Month, we kicked off our modules with citizen science. It came immediately after the first day or 2 in which we talked about crowdsourcing definitions in general. So, we'll have 5 hours of dedicated citizen science content spread out over 3 days. So this slide has an outline of the specific citizen science related activities, discussions, and other exercises that we're doing. So for homework Tuesday night, students completed SciStarter's Foundations of Citizen Science training module. That included both the tutorial and then also participation in 2 programs on SciStarter, Project Squirrel and Stall Catchers. Project Squirrel was particularly popular among them. Yesterday, we discussed crowdsourcing as a method in citizen science. We focused on the different ways that data collection and analysis are facilitated by internet crowdsourcing. And then we spent time working through the Zooniverse project's killer whale count and notes from nature. And again, they found different responses to these 2 very different projects in that platform. Last night, the students read a New York Times article from earlier this year about iNaturalist, and they did a mini bio blitz this morning when we met before this webinar. In their reflections after yesterday's class, the students commented on how easy they found it to participate in some of these citizen science projects and less easy in others. So things like Project Squirrel, easy, Notes from Nature, less so. They were also impressed with the wide variety of projects that are available through different programs. One of them commented, "This is not what I expected." And they're also talked about how they were interested in the motivations for participation, the ethics and bias that happen in data collection, and how the scientific community is accepting or not accepting of citizen science based on crowdsourced data. One of their biggest questions has been how to promote citizen science to diverse populations. And so I encourage them to come to this webinar to hear about how academic libraries are doing that around the world. Next slide, please. In addition to the citizen science module, our students will have various opportunities over the course of the term to look at other ways that citizen science intersects with our different things. So for instance, on Monday, when we talked about the origins of crowdsourcing, we talked about historic citizen science programs like the Audubon Society's Christmas bird count, which has been going on for 120 years. We also have a variety of projects that they are working on, some of which may include citizen science options as they wish to choose. And next week, when we have a section on the downsides of crowdsourcing, or what I'm calling when good crowdsourcing goes bad, a biology professor from Washington and Lee who uses iNaturalist data in his studies of salamander populations will be coming to talk to us about his experiences, both the good and the bad, with that kind of data. Next slide, please. So in sum, I am really excited about incorporating citizen science into this course on crowdsourcing. I think it gives me a compelling set of case studies for how the digital age has changed scientific research and also the relationship of non-scientists to science. And it allows us to talk about core fundamentals of information literacy. And all of this is at its core, the purpose of the DCI minor that the library runs to allow students to deeply explore how the digital age impacts knowledge in society. And we also get to look at squirrels. So that's a pretty cool side effect. So thank you so much for your attention. I think I have a few minutes for a question or two before the next speaker.
Absolutely. We have time for at least one, maybe two questions. Feel free to unmute yourselves and ask them verbally, or you can put them in the chat.
I have a question.
I just have one question for Katie. In doing the citizen science projects with your students, how do you feel like that's going to help them support communities in facilitating citizen science?
Well, I think that's an excellent question, because although we have 5 hours to work with this, which is much longer than I would normally have with either a guest lecture in a class or with an event, I think that they're still getting a fair surface amount of participation in these projects. Now, if they choose to incorporate citizen science projects into their weekly review projects or into their final project, then they on their own will do a little bit more digging into what these individually are. I think the main thing that I've been trying to get across to them is how easy it is to join these projects and how personally fulfilling they may find them. And so they can become proponents of citizen science because they themselves have experienced it and enjoyed it. One of the really big things that we've talked about a lot is that they had no idea that these were things that were available to them because they have not encountered this in their other academic coursework or when they were in the public schools before coming to college. And so part of it is just the awareness that it's there allows them to then say, hey, this is a cool project that I did. How can we do this again?
Love that. Absolutely. Tiberius, I saw you unmuted yourself. Do you have a question for KT?
Yes, I just wanted to ask if there are, if there is or it was an advocacy program that targets the university management at that level to support citizen science activities and their intersection with libraries. So not in general, but I'm looking for that spot where they intersect with library, and if there's an advocacy program from the library side to have that support.
We have not done that here because we have a lot of freedom on this campus to do whatever programs we want to out of the library. And so one outcome that I could see of this is that on the very last Friday of the term, when this class does not meet, it's possible that we may have some students who want to do a sprint to show off to their colleagues, their other students on campus, what this looks like, and to pull in even more people. But that is the kind of thing in my institution that if I wanted to do a citizen science sprint, I could just do that. And I don't need to ask for additional support out of my administration. So I haven't done advocacy in part because I don't feel the need to get additional funding from them to support that. But that's an excellent question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
These are great. We have a couple more questions that came through in the chat. How often do the scientists along with the students and the citizens meet to discuss? So I guess, do the project scientists meet along with the students that are participating? Yeah.
Right. So for the programs that we've done so far this week, they have entirely participated in them as citizen scientists using the SciStarter and the iNaturalist and Zooniverse platforms. So they have not had any interaction with those folks. But we do have a professor on campus who is actively using iNaturalist data in his research. And so he'll be coming next week. Part of the reason he's coming next week is that he is also teaching a class, as it happens, on his salamander population research at the same time as my class. And it was more convenient for him to come in the second week than in the first. And so, you know, you flex according to what people's schedules are, but we will be able to talk with him. And in some of our other modules, we will also be having people who are engaged with the research. So we are doing a sprint with the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, and the project manager for that is coming to talk to us as well. So we are trying to have at least one person who knows the back end of these systems come and speak with us. But I think that's a really important point, because it's different from the scientist's end than from the citizen scientist's end. And so seeing both sides is really key.
Absolutely. Last question, how does your citizen science training interact with other kinds of training that you're offering? Data literacy management, data management, literacy? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's a really great question. So this is part of that minor degree program. Students who are in that minor degree take required courses, and then they can have elective courses that fit whatever their interests are. We have one student in our course has declared as a minor in our program. Shout out to Amanda. And then we also have several students who are in another minor degree program that's sort of similar, which is specifically focused on data science. And so one of the things that we've talked about a lot in this class so far, 4 days in, is about data, and about data integrity, and about authority in creation of data. We're talking about things like, what do you do with data that is deliberately bad or accidentally bad? And so a lot of those things are touching on that space. That's one of the wonders of teaching citizen science from this crowdsourcing point of view, is that I really can think about, how do I connect it with a data science program? How do I connect it with greater questions of information literacy? But also, how do we think about, if you're going into a business field, what is it about citizen science that's appealing for you as a potential business owner? And so how can we connect it into those aspects of your life as well? One of the things I ask the students every day is, please reflect on the main takeaway you've received, and then the next question that you have. And I'm doing that from an adult learning lens, and that really helps me then connect it back to their other coursework that they're looking at. It's a wonderful question.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it just speaks to the sort of universal application of citizen science and how you're building those foundational skills. And you can use that kind of across the learning. Love that.
Right.
All right.
If I can also, before we move on, Tara, I
Absolutely.
just want to say hi to my students, who are, a lot of them are in this webinar, and I appreciate them being here. They're excited to hear from our other speakers as well, just to hear other ways that citizen science can be promoted in academic libraries. So thank you.
Hi, students.
Thank you so much. Yes, welcome. All right, let's move on. I think Dominic is next.
Hi, yes.
You have the floor, Dominic.
Okay, thank you very much. Could you move on to the next slide, please? So, yeah, just to introduce myself, my name is Dominic Tate. I'm the head of the Library Research Support Team and also the Deputy Director at Edinburgh University Library. We are a large, by British standards, a large research-intensive university with nearly 50,000 students, probably something like about 7,000 or 8,000 active research staff. Could I have the next slide, please? I wanted to start with just a quote from this is from our library vision document, and that is that. So this is what we say. This is what we say about our library, that the library helps people to grow their knowledge and create new connections through open services, collections and environments, sparking ideas that change the world. If I can have the next slide, please. Within my specific team, the Library Research Support Team, we say that the library's research support team enables the university's transition to open research. So we have teams that look after research data management, open access publications, scholarly communications, some of the research information systems, and now we have a new open research team. And all of this team's work, everything ultimately supports that goal of transitioning the university towards a sort of a world of open research. Can I have the next slide, please? We adopted an open research roadmap within the university. This is based on LERU's open research roadmap. So LERU is the League of European Research Universities, and they have a working group which some years ago came to get together with a kind of a proposed roadmap for open science. We call it open research at the University of Edinburgh because we have a very large arts, humanities and social sciences college, and we agreed on the nomenclature to say open research. We adopted this roadmap as a university document, and it's effectively owned by the university's research committee, but the work is coordinated by the library. If we could have the next slide, please. The roadmap identifies a number of different kind of pillars of open research, and we're doing really well in some of them around open access publications, around open research data, some of the stuff around research in integrity and ethics. What we did find, though, when we were working on the document, was that there was no obvious point of coordination for citizen science within the university, and actually that's still the case. So when we were kind of looking into what is the university doing around citizen science and trying to kind of self-assess for that, it was very difficult to find information. There was lots of information about various different citizen science projects that researchers were undertaking, but there was no kind of central point of coordination. And actually, ultimately, the library isn't really, it's still not the central point of coordination, but we'll come to that later. If I can have the next slide, please. So what we do have is some citizen science and a lot of participatory research. So this takes various different forms. So there are projects around public and patient involvement, PPI, the Viking Genes project. There's a lot of crowdsourcing. An example of that is a digitization project that the library is involved with Lyell's notebooks. There's collaborative research and there's co-production. So we're starting to kind of work a little bit through the various different kinds of types of citizen science and some of the definitions around the different types of involvement. Next slide, please. So what I wanted to talk about mainly today was why citizen science is important for me as a senior manager in the library. And I think that certainly where I work, and I think across Scotland, across the UK, and I think in other countries as well, I think academic libraries are actually behind the curve with this. Our colleagues in public libraries, in galleries, in museums have been leading with citizen science for years, but actually academic libraries, not so much. Now, there's also a kind of a cultural shift that we've seen in recent years with more kind of divisive politics, the so-called kind of post-truth world that we live in, and certainly in the pandemic, we've really seen that universities need to get out of their ivory towers, right? Public trust in science is quite low, and you know we know this, and I think libraries really have a lot to offer in this space in trying to build trust with the public and to do more to help researchers to communicate their research. So we started to think, well, what can we offer? And actually, it's kind of what we do already, which is collections, services, and spaces. And on top of that, we have existing relationships with a number of different community groups. So, I mean, where I work, we also have a university museum service, which is part of the library service. We have heritage collections, and they do huge amounts of work with different community groups locally in Edinburgh, across Scotland, and right across the world, actually. So actually, we have connections that we can offer, and we can kind of broker relationships on behalf of academics. So for us, when we were looking at our library services at a strategic level, citizen science is just really the obvious missing piece for us. Like, there's so much that we could do, but we don't really have a mechanism to kind of to bring it forward. And so what we thought was, what we need to do is we need to actually put our money where our mouth is and create a specialist role in the library to help support citizen science. So, I mean, our librarian skills are around supporting research and teaching, around customer service, about sharing knowledge, and also engaging community. So actually, we know that we can do this anyway. So it's really just a case of joining the dots. If I can have the next slide, please. So in terms of our approach at the University of Edinburgh, what we have done was we advertised externally for one library citizen science engagement officer. So that post has been filled by my colleague Neil Coleman, who I think is on the call today. It's an open-ended contract, so it's not, you know, we could have put the post in as a sort of a fixed-term contract for a couple of years to see how it goes, but actually we thought, no, this is something we're committed to in the long term, so we'll create an open-ended job. Rather than, it's going to make it more appealing for applicants rather than a part-time, a fixed-term role. It's a new role, and the job is to really understand how the library can support citizen science across the university, with a particular regard to our collections, our spaces, and our services. The job is specifically called Library Citizen Science Engagement Officer. And the library bit's important because it is a library role, and it's about what the library has to offer. It is not a citizen science coordination officer for the whole university. And the engagement part's important there because actually most of the engagement will be with researchers in the university to help them understand what the library can offer in terms of citizen science, and then they will be the ones doing the citizen science, running the projects, and engaging with the communities. We might broker relationships, but actually the engagement is internal within the university. We're expecting Neil to make recommendations to the senior management team, and that's starting to happen already. Neil's already written a report for us, which we will review and help with our kind of strategic direction of this service. The role promotes citizen science and participatory research to academics right across the university, and has developed a work plan. Now, this sits within in terms of knowing they're in the right direction. It supports the university's top level strategy 2030, which has a theme of social and civic responsibility. So it's all kind of tied together there. So if I could have the next slide, please. So this is some of the work that Neil has started on. So the next steps for us are to identify creative ways to use pre-existing resources to address the challenges of participatory research, and again, framed around collections, services, and spaces. To develop new services to address the challenges of participatory research. And part of that will be actually drawing together a kind of a catalogue or a list of services that we can offer and of collections that we can offer, and find ways of kind of promoting that to researchers easily, and to raise awareness and support the adoption of participatory research in engagement and research where it's appropriate. So that's kind of where we are now. And I'm happy to kind of leave it there and take any questions.
Thank you so much. We have two really great questions in the chat. The first is from Paul. What is the difference between citizen science and co-production?
Right, okay. I'm not going to pretend I'm the expert on this. I've done bits of reading around this, and I think there are some kind of differences of opinion on exactly what what all the definitions are. Co-production is something that we see already. It's something that that we know is happening through some of the research that's undertaken at the University of Edinburgh. I mean, we've kind of talked about this a little bit because Neil's his job title is Citizen Science Engagement Officer, and we have talked about whether we could actually change it to being Participatory Research Engagement Officer, because that might be more accurate, and citizen science might be one element of participatory research, and co-production could also be another element of participatory research. To be honest, I think I need to read Neil's report and kind of give this a bit more thought before we make any changes.
I was wondering, Dominic, if it's this idea that citizen science really comes from the agenda of the researcher or the scientist, and co-production is more of a the agenda being decided upon by communities in collaboration with scientists. So it's a different type of partnership. That's sort of my understanding of it. I don't know if others have thoughts, and if you in the chat or some of our participants have ideas, please chime in. This is a really important distinction, I think, and we've seen it evolving, the conversation evolving, as you say.
Yeah, I think.
Here, go ahead, Neil. Neil's not in the chat. Why don't you help us answer this question? I don't know if Neil's typing in the chat, maybe an answer.
Neil
in the
might
chat.
type into the chat.
Yeah.
I would just add, I think from our point of view as well, this is a new role, and when we created the role and the job description, we had an idea of what the role holder Neil would do. And actually, as Neil has started and started to undertake research, he's discovering different things. And actually, we need to be flexible with our work plan around this. And I think the definitions kind of come into that as well.
How meta citizen science is. We have to live it in our own work, right? We're always collecting data and making sure that we are using that to inform the way that we are engaging with our work. So we have another question. Oh, Neil said, sorry, I had a bit of a tech problem. Neil, did you want to chime in the chat, or did you want to unmute and tell us a little bit about your thoughts?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, well, good. Sorry, my laptop decided to be uncooperative. Yeah, I think the key thing is it's one of those vague semantic questions where, you talk to different researchers and they'll have different terms and often they'll look like the same thing. So some of the researchers I spoke to who are using the term co-production instead tended to be more in the arts. They were doing research. It was highly collaborative. It looked very similar to what other people might describe as citizen science. But for them, that term was what was most comfortable. And if you said citizen science to them, they'd run a mile. So one of the things about this is making sure that the term is very inclusive in terms when you're engaging with the researchers. So yes, in some instances, citizen science and co-production might be the same thing, but in other instances, they might be very different. And I think your comment there was very on point, where it's this idea that co-production tends to be much more highly participatory, whereas citizen science can be a range of levels of participation. Hope that kind of helps things, and sorry for jumping in there.
No, that was great. Thank you so much. Another question that we had for you, Dominic, could you elaborate the term cultural change in the pillars of open research? Is it different than what has been proposed by DORA, as they have only 8?
So I think there were, I need to count the number of pillars within the LERU roadmap. I think there were 8 pillars of open research, but for all of them they had an element of cultural change. And I think on the diagram in the slide, cultural change was just added as a separate thing. But this is really, really important actually, because this runs all the way through every theme of open research and the roadmap that we coordinate. We can't just kind of say you should be doing this or we should be doing that. There has to be a managed program of cultural change right across the university in order to enable that kind of transition to open research. So for things like open access publications, we've kind of done that. We get about 75% plus publications are open access because that was managed through a program of cultural change. We on the way with open data, but I think for a lot of other things, we need more engagement from university senior management as well. So talking about things like recognition and reward structures for researchers to actually incentivize working in an open way, or to incentivize working in citizen science. That's not really there yet for us, but that's something that we're championing with university senior management through the research committee. But I think we can have all these great ideas, but actually if we want to make changes, then we need to plan out how that's going to happen. And so that we have to kind of document that and review that on a regular basis.
Okay, our last presenter today, Raphael. You have the floor.
Hi everyone. So I'm going to speak about pollinators at the library. So pollinating insects. I don't know exactly how do you say that. So everything began with a program named People. People name means Suivi photographique des insectes pollinisateurs. It means that you have to follow and take pictures of pollinators, insects. It's a national program in France. It's since 2010, and it was launched by the museum. What we call the museum is a national museum for natural history. And the museum has a very important program named Vigie Nature, which is a program that with a lot of observatory, naturalist observatory, okay, for about, I don't know, butterfly, insect, flowers, and so on. So People is one of this program, and it's national. So what do people have to do? So this is citizen scientists. In fact, it's really a data collection project. It's what we said before. It's not collaboration. It's really about data collection. And so what do they have to do? They have access to an application on their phone or on computer, and they have to choose a flower, and they take picture during 20 minutes of every insect that come on this flower. And then they go to the computer and they identify the insect on the computer, on the platform, and they post the picture, and the rest of the community can comment, validate the insect, and so on. The community is very important in the project. So this program is national, but the researcher found that we were lacking of data in Bordeaux, which is the city where I'm living, and around Bordeaux. In fact, in the southwest of France, we are lacking of information and data. So in 2022, so 12 years after the launch, the initial launch, one laboratory, Biogico, of the University of Bordeaux and INRAE, gained funds to organize a specific People campaign on our territory, on Bordeaux and around. So for that, they have hired a scientific animator named Samantha Février to do a lot of things. She had a lot of job, but it's also to spread information about People, find new participants, help them to use the platform and disseminate the results, etc., etc. And in 2022, has every year since a lot of years now in France, we have La Fête de la Science, so the science festival, you could say. And so when Samantha took her position, she was thinking that she could organize something about people during the Fête de la Science. And the national topic of Fête de la Science in 2022 was the climate change. So that was perfect topic for speaking about pollinators, of course, as you can imagine. So she contacted the University of Bordeaux because she's part of the University of Bordeaux. And our university is organizing every year during the Fête de la Science something called the Circuit Scientifique Bordelais. That means a kind of scientific pathway in Bordeaux. And it's organized by the university to reach out schools, okay, teachers and students during the festival, the science festival. And the University of Bordeaux talked to Samantha and told her to contact the academic library to install there an exhibition. So she contacted Delphine Lemonnier and Claire-Lise Gauvin, who are librarians. And Delphine and Claire-Lise contact us at the office of Bordeaux because we were already committed to citizen science. So altogether, Samantha, Delphine, Claire-Lise, me and François, who was my intern at this moment, we do a collaborative work on this proposal to make an event around this people campaign at the academic library during the science festival. So what we did, we co-designed a knowledge pathway about citizen science, pollinator, history of biology, and of course about people, and how through an exhibition, but also some workshops, meetings, contests, and so on. What was important is that all of us bring our expertises. So my colleagues, librarians, they really give us their expertises of the location, the space, of course, the library, but also the expertises in documentation and actual documentation, but also cultural heritage documentation. For our part, our office, we really give expertises about citizen science, but also about scientific communication and mediation. And finally, the labs bring its expertises in ecology, pollinators, and of course, about the program's people and the platform. So that was the event. The event was named Chercher la petite bête. It means looking at the small beast, but it's also an expression saying when you are trying to find something really, you know, at the middle of something, you know. And so it was organized from the 7th to the 17th of October 2022, so 6 months ago. And it was open also the Saturday. That's important to reach out the people. So what do we organize? First, an exhibition. It was 7 kakemonos. You can see that on the pictures, some of them. 5 posters, A2, and 2 posters, A3, and 1 insect hotel. I don't know if you know what is an insect hotel, but you can see one on the pictures. It was the association of students who give us this insect hotel for the exhibition. So what was the purpose of the exhibition? It was to make people willing to participate to people and also to other programs, but also to make them understand the issues of the people program. And in fact, the issues of the pollinators and the climate change on our territory at Bordeaux, and also to learn about pollinating insects, because a lot of people don't know anything about pollinating insects, and that's normal. For a lot of us, pollinating insects are mainly bees and wasps, but there is so many more. And I was in charge of the animation of this part of the exhibition. So you can see me speaking to some different kind of people. And why? Because we really take the citizen science process as the fil d'Ariane of the pathway in the exhibition. It was really are willing to make people understand that they can participate to this kind of project. And some people told me, but I don't have a garden or things like that. So, you know, or I don't know because that's not my my discipline, etc., etc. So we really have this way to say we are all researchers. That's the name of the first kakemono was Chercheurs, all researchers. The second thing was a people workshop. So the people go to the exhibition and then to the people workshop. So there they practice on the computer to train to identify the different insects, because that's not so easy, you know, we know they all have the same number of feet, but they are not the same. There are so many more difference between the wings and so on. So it was important to practice. It was important to also discover the platform. Okay, so it was learning to participate, also to know the tools, and that's something important for us. Not just knowing the content, but also knowing the platform and not being afraid by the platform. And the animation was made by Samantha, who is all specialist of this people platform, of course, but also she's a biologist, and that's very important. I'm not a biologist. Next, they went to the cultural heritage workshop, and then the Claire-Lise Gauvin was made them travel in the time, we can say, through a selection of books with insect and floral image, different kind of books, and they can discover the history of biology, but also discover the cultural heritage collection of the library. A lot of people didn't know that we have this. And also we provide some copies for coloring. So there were some kids who made some coloring books with you know, butterflies and so on, but some grown-ups too. And finally, we offer a documentary selection, or as usually we can say a physical presentation table, but not just that, also a digital presentation table using a tool that we are using at Earthist named Chronicle. You can see some image there. And we presented a selection of papers, external resources, but also of data. And that was very important for us to give access to research data that are open and to show that to the people. So that was the work of Delphine Lemonnier, our librarian, who did a great job about it. And finally, we proposed to the people a journal booklet. So it was for accompanying the visits for schoolers, but also for non-schoolers, with questions and readers. For example, this one, the picture is a reader that's looking at the small beast, how many you can count on this image, and so on. And at the end, they could participate in a contest and gaining some books, but also some seeds to begin to do people on their garden or windows or balcony, what they want. So we had some visitors. The visits for the workshops and meeting was something like 69 people. And the school visit, we had one class, 22 school students and their teacher. It was some kids, 13 years old. And that was very interesting because in the other people, we have some kids from 8 and 9, and it was very different, their approach to this question. So it was a kind of experience, very, very, I think, useful for us. And but we didn't count the visits of the exhibition done outside of the workshop. We couldn't let someone during 15 days counting every people who stayed on there. So we just count the people coming to the workshops and meetings. So what's next? The exhibition is already printed, so it's reusable, and the workshop and notebooks are easy to reproduce. It's we document it here, and the Chronicle for the online documentation has now a new version, so it's still usable. So we could imagine, and that's what we plan at the beginning, to make this exhibition workshop itinerant, okay? And in fact, the exhibition is ready to be installed in another library, but it will be a public library in a city around Bordeaux that name is Saint-Médard-en-Gers, so in May and June 2023. So what is interesting for us, it makes a bridge between labs, academic library, and now public library. So to conclude, what does the academic library bring to this project? I can say that the library was a place of passage, a place of knowledge, a public place, and a meeting place between the university and society. really, because we spoke to students, but we spoke also to citizens, so parents with their kids, for example, the Saturday, and we spoke also to kids through the school. Okay, but the library was also a link between yesterday and today through the documentary expertise. That was very important. The library has this strong documentary expertise that is important in this project. So from the heritage to the most recent research, from cultural heritage to research data. And finally, it was also a stage for the promotion of research. So by making documents available, by organizing events, by the presence of a lab in the library participate to show what is the research today and how a lab like Biologico is doing research and what does it mean for us. And specifically, what does it mean for university and society, for knowledge and society. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Raphael. We see through the Citizen Science Library Network, pollinators are extremely popular. Pollinator programming is extremely popular with libraries across the country because everybody has different types of pollinators. It is, and it's a problem, unfortunately, because of global warming and climate change. So we have a couple of questions here. How do you link, and this, I love this question as an anthropologist, how do you link the pollinator project with cultural heritage?
My colleague, because that was not my job, my colleague did different kind of work. The first thing that she finds some documents, cultural heritage document with reproduction of insects and plants and so on. And with this document, she was able to show first how we draw and how do we represent insects at different time of the knowledge. And second thing, she was able to see what kind of insects were representing the insectology, I could say, of southwest of France at the moment, and what is the difference with now. And last point, it was also representing some for the kids. We had kids who came to the event, and they are used to a specific type of drawing, like Disney drawing, and it was very important for them to have access to different kind of documentation, and specifically with coloring books that we give them. And it was very fun for them to have possibility to coloring a butterfly coming from an old book. So that was a lot of things. There is a lot of meaning in linking the pollinator project with cultural heritage.
I was going to also suggest food, right? And thinking about food culturally, and how pollinators are such an important part of the food that we eat. We do that with kids here. We have them look at a breakfast plate and say, like, what foods here have come from pollinators? And almost everyone has, right? I think they say every 3 bites of food has been touched by a pollinator, something like that. So it's another great way to connect it to that more meaningful cultural.
We had this discussion with the kids, the kids from school, the 13 years schools students, and they come with school, so they were not very interested at the beginning. They were like, I have to come. Oh, no. And we really work on this question of what do you eat? And at the beginning, they say, I don't care. I don't like vegetables. I want to eat a cow. I say, yeah, but what is eating a cow? And so on, so on. And at the end, one student told me, no matter, I will eat some rice. I say, well, yes, but rice is a plant, and so on. And it was very interesting. So yeah, food is a good way to enter in the discussion. Yes, with
Absolutely.
kids.
Sarah has a question. Is it easy or difficult to involve research university libraries and librarians in this kind of project?
This is a very interesting question. Thank you, Tara, because I think the two colleagues I'm speaking about, they were totally in at the beginning, on the first place. When Samantha contacted them and said, would you like to, they say yes. Okay, they jump on the project, but it's more difficult to make the project, to reorganize the projects on other place, because it's asking for time, okay, and a kind of engagement and a commitment. So that's why we are working on doing some exhibition that itinerant exhibition that you can change of place and not asking people so many work. Yes, but it's also why we are giving some class about citizen science. And I think that Tomini pointed out something very important, that it's not the fact we don't do the citizen science project, but we can accompany it. Yeah.
And I guess this kind of goes to Tiberius's question. Did you consider using SciStarter to engage with audiences outside of your library if your library doesn't necessarily have a lot of visitation? But as you just mentioned, you're not the project lead, right? You are just you are supporting outreach for the project. But I'm wondering, you know, thinking about working with the project scientists, did you discuss ways to broaden participation in this project?
Yeah, that was the plan, because, you know, usually in this library there is mainly students. And with this project, we open this project to school students and also to citizens, because some people come with their kids. You know, there was a lot of communication, and now the exhibition is going to the public library, so it's going to reach some other people. And in fact, we did not consider to use the platform, because I'm not it's also already a platform, people right. on Vigipirate and so on. But I was very interested with the kits, participative kits from SciStarter. And really, when we think about the exhibition, I immediately think about having something that another library could use. So yes, we are inspired by SciStarter, but we are not considering to use it exactly like this.
Yes, that's a great point. And for those who don't know, one of the things that we do with the libraries is help them develop kits that that their users can circulate and their users can check out to participate in projects that require specialized tools, like a light meter, for example, if they're measuring light pollution. People don't just have that laying around their home. So coming to the library and checking out those specialized tools is a way to broaden participation and access. So thank you so much. I know we're going to be talking a little bit more about how you might be inspired to do this, but I do want to open the floor to our panelists. If there is something that you heard from the other panelists, what is a question that you have for them? Is there something that you would like to follow up on? We have about 5 minutes for this, so feel free to ask each other some follow-ups.
So I've got a question for each of the other panelists. So I'll start actually with Raphael. So thanks so much for your presentation. It's a really inspirational for us. I wondered, do you have any evidence that these projects are kind of are reaching parts of society that aren't experienced with university? You know, do you know anything about the participants, and are you able to kind of evidence that it's reaching into society? It's not just, so I'm aware, I heard an anecdotal story, heard a story from someone at another university in Scotland about a particular citizen science project where they were doing something, counting things on a beach, and actually half the people there were other university professors, and they're very well educated children. And I wondered if you had any kind of evidence about, you know, being able to reach other people.
Yeah, I have strong evidence that people were really coming from around the university, I could say. So yeah, sorry for that. And that's why I said it was very important for us to have the kids from school. And to be more specific, these kids were in a specific school where they were oriented to have to not continuing school. You know, so it's a professional pathway, you could say, but very early in the school, you know. So that was kids that were not very comfortable with school, with study, and they were for the first time and maybe for the last time of their life in an academic university, academic library. And that was very important, very important. And just for that, maybe it's 22%. But it was a very good experience for us, and I hope for them too. But what I can say, I didn't do for this time, maybe another time, a study, a sociological study to continue to see the impact. I haven't the time for this time to do it, but yeah.
That's really good to hear. I had another question for KT, and that was about whether, do you feel that the library is now seen as being like the centre of expertise for citizen science on campus through your activities, or is there kind of coordination elsewhere as well?
I would say no. Because this activity is really focused on this one set of 16 students, right? And so it's that age-old question of, do you go broad but not very deep with a lot of people, or do you go deep but not with just a few number of people? And so in this case, I'm going very deep with a very small number of students. But I think that what this opens up are the questions that we're having in this class are things like, okay, but how do we go broad with this? And so I'm interested in talking with my students, and I expect that they're going to have those same questions when we move from citizen science into citizen archives work. And also even when we talk about other applications of crowdsourcing, right? So they also do not have experience with like editing Wikipedia, which is a fairly broad experience that a lot of people have. And so I think that there is no one on this campus who is seen as a center of that management, as you spoke about for Edinburgh, right? This is not a problem that you're feeling at R1s that we have mastered at small schools. And so I'm interested in your experience with saying, okay, let's reach out to our faculty and establish the library as a place that has expertise. So you're almost thinking about it from the faculty level, and I'm coming at it from this undergraduate level. And then I love that Raphael has then the third piece of our puzzle, that community piece, and the idea of who's coming in, who's maybe external to our space, who we can pull in to experience our space and see how we have that expertise as well. So my short answer is no, but I also think that all three of us are interested in that coming from our different perspectives. So I could even turn that around and just say, I'm interested in how the two of you are thinking about that as the library's role in kind of coming at it from different ends of our apple, if we want to think about it that way.
Okay, I will begin. It's very complicated because in my university, my unit, which is an academic unit for training researchers to scholarly communication, it's independent, but it's also attached administratively stuck to the library. And now we are at UFIST identified as experts in citizen science. And because I'm so fond of library, all of my advocacy about citizen science is also to say that we need to bring a library in the project. As I said, it's difficult for the academic library, and I think that all of us are meeting that, because it's great to be ready, it's great to have the willing, but we need money. Okay, we need people, we need time, we need okay. So I think it's difficult for the librarians today in France, so specifically, to say, hey, we are here, because they don't have the resources to do it. So what I think we need to work now as librarians is to do advocacy, and that's why I'm part of Citizen Science Working Group of LIBER, of course. But I think we need to do advocacy, and we need to learn librarians to obtain funds to take part of that, because if not, we can't participate. And I'm very, very convinced by that. We need money, we need funds. And when researchers do projects, citizen science projects, they should work with the library, but the library can do that for free. The library says, we can do things for you, but in the ANR project, in the European project, we want as much as money has. Exactly. So no free action. It's not possible on the long term.
Yeah, I agree. I would add though, I think that certain. I mean, we're a large university with with an amount of scale, but actually the investment that we've made is quite small given the scale of our university, and what we wanted to do in the library. We sort of saw that we have so much to offer, and some of the little pieces are there, but it was just having the resource of one person to be able to draw it together and coordinate it as a full-time job, rather than it being lots of different people's responsibility. So actually, what Neil's doing, what that job is doing is, Neil's one of, we have nearly 200 staff in the library. So it's, one extra post was we could find that, it's not always very easy, but we could find that. If there's a will, there's a way to find that. And then actually building on work that's already happening, building on the collections that are already there, having conversations about how we can use our spaces better, brokering relationships, really. That's the kind of approach we take. And we don't know where it'll lead, but it just seems obvious to me as a library leader that we have to do this, right? And if we don't do it, we'll be left behind. So, that's my point, really.
Well, and what I worry about is that if we don't do it, then our students are left behind. That we're graduating people who have missed an entire aspect of what culture is in terms of science research, and what are the implications of that then for the outcomes of that research, and what we know about the natural world, right? So that I think that's the end goal, is to be graduating. For me, it's to graduate people who can be digital citizens, and that involves understanding how research works.
The question I had for you, Katie, is related to that, because I don't know if it's a question, but I was very interested when you say, in fact, citizen science, a course is important for the students because it's also a lifelong learning program for them. And I was thinking that every time I'm teaching citizen science, in fact, I'm teaching, I don't know, biology students to organize citizen science, but I never think about telling them you are also a citizen scientist, and maybe you can learn about linguistic or philosophy if there is some. And it's also part, for me, it was part of the citizen science lifelong learning program. But in fact, I think very interesting to present that for our students to open their mind. And it's not really a question, but I think that you opened my mind. So thank you very much.
But I think that also connects to what you were saying about those 13-year-olds who came into an academic space that is not part of their intended career progression, right? But they've now seen this academic space that is, to me, from the photos, looks like a friendly, welcoming space where they can feel like they belong. And that may be a new and exciting experience for them that changes how they approach their careers from here forward, right? So that becomes part of that lifelong learning piece as well. So I was really excited to see that.
This was perfectly kind of summarizing what I've been thinking, just as a big takeaway before we jump into the presentations from others, is that the dynamic application of citizen science, both as a way to strengthen the skills of the university students, but also connect to the community, really aligns well with the the dynamic and the flexible and the lifelong learning approach of libraries. And that is why these two pieces fit so well together. Okay, we can ask some audience questions and then maybe 10 minutes for the additional presentations, Raphael?
Yeah, we have time for some question, and then we have some colleagues who were volunteered to present one action of citizen science, like we call that the showroom. So maybe if there is some question for beginning.
Yeah. And feel free to unmute yourselves to ask any of our panelists questions.
Okay, so if there is no question now, we can maybe begin with the showroom, and maybe you will have some question after that. So let's talk about citizen science at your libraries. That's the showroom part. So we have different colleagues who were volunteers and that send their slides. So I will invite Paul Aries from UCL, who's here.
Yes, I am. Hello, Paul Aries here from London.
So your slide is on, so you can present your citizen science actions. Thanks.
Yes, Raphael, thanks very much. My name is Paul Aries. I'm Pro-Vice Provost here in UCL. So I am responsible for a number of units, about 450 staff in total. But one of the units which I set up is the UCL Open Science Office, which coordinates open science activity across all 8 pillars that we observe here in Europe, and embed open science thinking and practice in the life of the university. The university, like Edinburgh, as Dominic was describing, is a very large one here. You see pictures in the middle of the screen there on the left-hand side of the main building. My office is just to the right of the portico. We have 50,000 students. We're probably the single largest university in terms of numbers in the whole of the UK. 50,000 students is very large for the UK. We have a UCL Press, the UK's first fully open access university press, which
we are losing you, Paul. Paul, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I think we can't hear you now. It's a
little bit more
Paul has entered in a new dimension, I think.
Do others also don't hear?
Okay, Paul, we let you having the good connection, and maybe Till you can present your action.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. So hello, my name is Till. I'm from Central Technical Library at University of Ljubljana. I would like to show you 2 actions what we really have for citizen science in our library. There are 2 actions. It is about Observatory of the Citizen Science in Slovenia. So we made the citizen science platform for Slovenian projects in citizen science. And the other is infrastructure for citizen science. Why and for what purpose? First one, citizen science platform is about to share knowledge of everything about citizen science, projects, events, and news. And it is about to engage people to start to join to become citizen scientists. And what is the other stuff is infrastructure for citizen science, because we have space and resources for citizen science. That means adaptation of training for different institutions for individual projects. We have a photographer, especially for citizen science. We have librarians giving advices about citizen science. You know, in our library, we are about 40 people and about 10 people are dealing with science and others, they are librarians. Then CPK, publications for citizen science project planning. We have made 5 steps of planning citizen science project and recommendations for recruiting citizen science researchers. You just can see on the left side the pictures, because that is our main interest in the library, that there are 2 colleagues representing. We have 3D scanners and so on. And maybe, next slide, please. Can you give next slide? What are the results for both of them, the platform and the infrastructure? It's about bringing people together to help to improve the quality of life in the library and outside of the library, and to help library to become more open for knowledge. What is the next step? I will just be 1 minute and or maybe just a few seconds. What is the next step for those two things? For first thing, Citizen Science platform is to make our platform Citizen Science more international. So we are now going to change the language from Slovenian to English language in next few months in our site. And the other thing, infrastructure, is to promote our infrastructure in our library. What is the specific infrastructure that we have for citizen scientists? We have water cases for the projects. We have bird identification cassettes, meeting rooms to citizen science to come to us to discuss different projects and stuff, and promotion of research. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting. Of course, colleagues, it's a showroom, so that's very quick. But if you want to hear more about TIL, is perfectly open to present that later.
Thank you.
Thank you, TIL.
Thank you.
Dolores, I see that you're here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, hello. I'm Dolores from Croatia, and I work at the National and University Library in Zagreb. This Tuesday, we had a citizen science activity, Dendroteka, which we organized in collaboration with the Faculty of Forestry and Wood Technology in 2 high schools in Zagreb. The action was to identify 3 species on old postcards of Zagreb and their recreated photographs. In the first part of the activity, high schoolers visited locations from postcards, recreated the postcards with their mobile camera, and tried to identify the trees with the help of the mobile application PlantNet. In the second part, which you can see on the picture 1 and 2, children learned with dendrology experts about ways to recognize tree species based on leaves, fruit, etc. Then they used this knowledge to identify the trees on postcards and photographs with the experts. So what was the purpose? Presenting the cultural heritage from the National and University Library in Zagreb and connecting it with the natural heritage through scientific research. As for the results, there were involving students in scientific research, emphasizing the importance of sustainable development, and also discovering interesting exotic tree species such as banana trees or agave in the history of Zagreb. Also, these results will be published in some forestry journal. And what will we do next? We will create and publish Dendroteka website that will contain a collection of postcards and photographs together with encyclopedic information on corresponding tree species. So visitors of the website will know more additional information about the trees. And that's it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dolores. It's a very interesting project too. I think that we have also Gintare that is present for presenting your project.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Gintare Dukevičienė. I'm from Kaunas University of Technology from Lithuania. And I would like to introduce you to one of the activities undertaken by 5 universities from 3 Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and 2 non-profit organizations, Web2Learn from Greece and Imerbesa from Germany, which are participating in the Erasmus Plus project, University Libraries Strengthening the Academia-Society Connection through Citizen Science in the Baltics. One of the project activities is to develop training course and to provide training for library staff to improve their skills in citizen science, and also to train the trainers for providing the skills in citizen science. The project partners have cooperated to develop the framework of training course to decide on the content and form of the training. The results of this collaborative activities, what we got is an online training course on citizen science. The course is designed as self-paced learning course and Moodle platform that learners can study at a time and pace that suits to them. The learning course consists of 5 modules, and learners has access to learning materials, practicals, exercises, and final tests leading to a certificate. We have also provided face-to-face training to librarians and are planning further training for academic staff. What's the next? We want to initiate and maintain a dialogue between researchers and librarians, encouraging them to become more involved in citizen science, not only as participants, but also as initiators and facilitators. And also we would like to have some institutional changes through establishment of a citizen science hub at participating universities. So it's short information about our activities.
So thank you very much, Gintare. That's also a very interesting project. And I'm happy to see that we have so many different kind of projects presented in this showroom. So thank you very much. I think that Stefan, he's here too.
Yes, I am.
Hello.
I'm Stefan from Switzerland. I present one activity where we try out citizen science and the humanities. We let citizen scientists transcribe historical documents which are digitally published on the platform eManuscripta. We also let them comment these documents with the same tool. What we had for is to raise the interest in the history of Zurich and promote research on the history of Zurich. The specific results are machine-readable text of the digitized manuscripts and the generating of a ground truth for handwritten text recognition. So far, we let them manually transcribe, but now we try, the next step will be to integrate a handwritten text recognition engine into the standard workflow, and then let the citizen scientists also correct what the machine did before. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan. I think we have seen everyone. So I'm go back on the slide of Paul, because Paul finally succeeded to join us back. So Paul, it's up to you. Thank you.
Raphael, thank you very much. Sorry about the collapse of technology here in London. I think it was at our end. I'll be very brief to finish the description. So here in the UCL Office for Open Science, we do run citizen science activities. And the one I want to highlight is this one, a certification process for citizen scientists who are lay citizens in London who are working in our local London borough, the London Borough of Camden, which is the area which surrounds the academic quarter here in Bloomsbury in London. Why have we done this? Because our strapline as a university is London's global university. And so there is an onus on us to engage with the local community and therefore to develop further outreach activity in London. And we have a separate UCL London office, which is geared towards outreach in London. The results of this activity are that it is now a joint activity between London citizens and this university. The citizens who are participating are young school children or people who have just left secondary school who wouldn't normally expect to be working with a university or to be part of a university activity. We do this because we want to broaden the expectations of people who are applying to university, to encourage them to aspire to come to a university, whereas before they may not have thought that was appropriate for them. If they don't want to apply to university, they can certainly experience skills development and add to their CV for their future employment in the community by attaining this accreditation, even if they, at the end of the day, don't come to university. We are just about to issue our first certificates. I will be handing out the certificates next week here in London. I'm so looking forward to meeting the students, and we do plan with our the UCL Institute for Global Prosperity, who are piloting this development. We plan to scale up the approach to embrace other London boroughs, and my colleague Kirsty Wallace, who's part of the call, has put some links in the chat to give people more information about the work of this really important activity to make the university even more relevant to lay society. Raffaella, thank you very much for being patient and giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much for coming back, because it was very interesting to hear, and we would have missed that. So thank you very much, and I think that was the last. You were the last person to send us your slides. So I'm go back to give the mic to Tara for finishing the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to be mindful of everyone's time, but I'd like to thank our panelists today, Raffaella, and Dominic and KT. So thank you so much. And thank you all for sending in your examples as well. That was very inspiring. And I encourage you to share your email address in the chat, and we can send that in the follow-up. And we really encourage you to join the LIBER Citizen Science Working Group so that we can continue to have these conversations together. We will send the recording as well as that information in the follow-up email. Thank you so much for joining us today, and happy Citizen Science Month. We will see you soon.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.